Hey customizers, welcome to the next adventure at Talking Hands Customs. To all my subscribers, thank you very much, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the channel. We're going to be doing a vehicle spotlight on the Jeeps. So we're talking about the Vamp Mark 1, the Vamp Mark 2, the Stinger, and the Rattler 4-wheel drive. That's a mouthful. So from now on, they'll just be collectively referred to as the Jeeps. And individually, we'll talk about the ins and outs of the various designs. And what I've got in front of you right now is the end result of what we're going to talk about, which is a mix match of various parts. This is mostly actually just Stinger and Vamp Mark 1, but the modularity of the Jeeps actually allows you to interchange multiple parts. And that's thanks to let's call it a generic design for the add-on parts. What I consider to be add-on parts are roofs and doors and the turret, and to an extent the gas can parts in the back here. So I'm just going to quasi-gingerly disassemble this here and show you what I mean. And there are some tips and tricks, and there's one little tiny trap which isn't so tiny if you find out by mistake. But we'll cover it here to hopefully save you the pain in the butt. So with pulling this apart, first thing I want you to do is keep in mind there's a large tab right here. It helps keep the Jeep nice and secure, and the way it stays secure in the back is that these holes here are where the tail lights in the lower hull come out. So you pop these first, rotate the lid forward, and then slide out this tab. It will make a loud noise. Please go very gently but firmly when you're removing this, and if you break it, and I've done that once or twice, once you put the custom back together, you'll probably just have to glue that in place and no longer be able to take it apart. Other than that, I mean, the other thing that sticks on for the most part is the gray dashboard part on any of the Jeep variations. I usually end up just masking it or accepting the fact that it's going to get spray painted or painted in one way or another, and then I'll go back and make it the color I want it with a brush after the fact. And there's a 3D printed steering wheel in there. This roll cage here, in this case here, the factory glue is kind of undone in the front, so I'll be reattaching that. It is factory glued. In fact, this is only holding on by one point there. I would be very hesitant to tell you to pull that apart because you might break it. If you're feeling adventurous, then go for it. But in the meantime, it honestly never really proves to be that much of a pain in the butt to paint these parts. Keeping in mind that if you do add roof parts, that it becomes a friction point around the bar for the doors and the roof. So just be careful about taking it on or putting it on and taking it off repeated times. So you know what? Let's start from the bottom here. We already covered the hull, so that's great. But let's look at the chassis itself. It's pretty common for 3 out of the 4 Jeeps. And this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to save you a huge, huge headache, is telling you that for whatever reason, the Rattler 4-wheel drive is a different shape and size. Don't know why, but when I was working with a Rattler 4-wheel drive that I'd found all beat up and everything, it did not fit Stinger and Vamp parts. So the Stinger and the Vamps are all interchangeable. The Rattler 4-wheel drive has to stay on its own, which was a bummer because I had plans, then I had to shift those plans around. So if somebody knows why, I mean, it's probably the plastic they used or somebody had to redesign it, or who knows, there's probably some cool story behind it. But if you know what it is, leave it down in the comments below. Your separate bumper, the nice thing is about the hull here is that the bumper joint is universal. So it helps you if you need to scratch build something if it doesn't have a bumper at all, or if you have a Vamp Mark 1 bumper or the Mark 2 bumper or the Stinger bumper. They can all be swapped out with each other, which is nice. The great thing about the turrets is that they all have, in the vintage side, they all have the same keyed post here, and they all fit into each other. So you can put a Stinger on a Vamp Mark 1 and a Vamp Mark 2 on a Stinger, etc., etc. The Rattler 4-wheel drive will also have the same turret mount because it uses the same turret as the Stinger. But just rather than constantly going back and forth between 4 different Jeeps, what I'll say is if you're going to try something and customize it, don't commit yourself to paint before you've tried to make sure that it all physically works. Don't assume that it will fit. Try it out first. And that's all there is to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the differences and why would you want to maybe swap out some of these parts and interchange them all. Aren't they all the same Jeep? And I'm sure some of you already know this stuff, but it's for the folks that don't, and we're all working together here, right? So here we have a regular Vamp Mark II. And then I'm going to take this Stinger, which I already customized. It doesn't look like it necessarily yet, but I'll walk you through that one. So as you can see here, looking at the hoods first, they're all different. So the Vamp Mark I has the machine gun. The Vamp Mark II has a tarp, let's call it, and a shovel. And then the Stinger has a shovel and some engine bits on the top there. As I alluded to before, the Stinger has a different bumper. This one's a custom. It has a forked out bumper looking thing. The Vamp Mark II has the headlights on it, and the Vamp Mark I, as you saw, just has a regular green bumper bar. The frame is all the same diameter, so all the roof and door bits are compatible across all the different Jeeps. And the turrets, this one has the double-barreled pom-pom accessory. The turrets are all interchangeable with each other. And I've been led to believe, and I haven't tried it yet, shame on me, that these Vamp missiles here are actually interchangeable with the Wolverine ones. So maybe give it a whirl. I don't have any on hand to try it with, but they might be interchangeable, and I think I read it somewhere. So maybe it was on an Etsy store or something like that. So if you want to go even, a little bit different with your custom and you can't get any Vamp Mark II missiles for whatever reason, try the Wolverine missiles. Stinger missiles, the modern and the vintage both work on the Stinger launcher. The problem is that they're not the same missile. The difference being is that the modern missile has rivets on it. Okay. I have not tried any modern turrets on vintage stuff other than the Stinger missiles and their interchangeability there. So that's a test before you commit, as most things in the custom world are. So you saw what I'm doing with this Vamp here, and we'll talk probably more about that a little bit later, and it's certainly going to be featured in an upcoming episode. With the Vamp Mark II, what makes the Vamp Mark II the Vamp Mark II, aside from the headlights and the hood here, you have a removable roof and doors. The roof clips onto the sides, and the doors clip onto these stanchions here. The next thing that makes it that is the box missile launcher on the back here, and then the gas cans. If you see here, they're actually different. All three vehicles are different in the back. I should have mentioned that earlier, but this one has a bustle for gas cans. This one has the water cans that poke right onto the back. And the Stinger has a stand for two figures with a grab bar there. Because who doesn't want to ride right behind a missile launcher? But anyway, suspension of disbelief, right? That's how this whole thing works. So with the cans, the back of the G.I. Joe, or of the vehicle, they're all G.I. Joe, is different. So there's two poke holes here for these cans, and the cans have two posts which fit into the back, which means that if you want to swap around designs, that you have to keep that in mind. So if you don't feel like getting into cutting and altering the hull, maybe stick with the Vamp Mark II cans with the Vamp Mark II hull, etc., down the line. So aside from that, the colors are clearly different. They're all actually the same dark gray. Even the Stinger, the original Stinger, is a dark gray. So if you want to change things, for example, the Tiger Sting, which is the Franken version of these Jeeps made for Tiger Force, it has an all black hull. So if you wanted to do a version of Tiger Force on a Vamp or a Stinger, then you'll have to paint the whole hull. In that case, I've never successfully removed wheels from these things, so I just, when in doubt, mask it all off. Just remember to mask off the silver bits here if you want to preserve that, because you'll want to paint the whole thing black, and that'll probably be spray work and brush work, just to get into all the nooks and crannies here, which is not a big deal. And if this is your first episode at the channel, go back to the beginning, find some stuff where we talk about the basics. If not, what it boils down to is if you've got spray cans, airbrush, or paint brushes, you can use all three, one or the other, or whatever you want, whatever combination of tools you need to get the job done, right? So in this case, trying to get paint in all there, and that's what you want to do, is make this look as solid as possible. You'll have to employ multiple techniques to get that done. Not a big deal, just something to keep in mind. Maybe set aside an afternoon and a bottle of Tylenol or something for the headache it's going to cause you. It's actually not that bad. I've done it before. So let's get rid of the two Joe Jeeps and let's talk about the Stinger. That was so expensive. Anyway, this one here is the first custom, and it's a variation on the MSV, I think it was called. Anyways, Sears Canada exclusive that had a Stinger Vamp type Jeep released with a towable weapon system, which I may include in this at a future date. And all I did basically was take a Stinger that didn't have the forky bumper on it, which is commonplace. I put a Vamp Mark 1 bumper on it because those are easy to find. And then I just painted the whole thing solid black. It has the original gray hull here, and then just painted the wheel hubs black. So that's a simple masking off a circle and spray painting it. And everything else is pure Stinger. And that's it. So really the only thing that changed was actually nothing. This actually qualifies as a minimalist build, which is fantastic. And then I just put on some Cobra stickers to match the original. And that's the size of it. And so this one I call like the MSV Mark II or something like that, or whatever, doesn't matter. Either way, that's that. We went a little bit more bold with the same idea. A little bit more bold here. So this one's a Crimson Stinger, and it's this is the one that had the trouble with the four-wheel. So this was the Rattler four-wheel drive, in that when I tried to fit the when I tried to swap the parts around, and this is actually a fantastic demonstration, is that while these both look 100% like Stinger bodies, okay, if you look at the tail lights, they're different sizes. And that's where the problem came from. So they're not interchangeable because you can't, I mean, could you make it work? Yeah, you could sand it down and, go through that whole pain in the butt, but why would you? But in the meantime, there's your proof right there, is that the headlights, or the tail lights, are different sizes, so they don't fit one on the other. So just keep it together. I mean, could you modify it? Of course, you could cut these things in half and make whatever the heck you want. But we're all about the path of least resistance here at Talking Hands Customs. So why would I do that to myself? And with the Crimson Stinger, it's pretty simple. My stickers were a mix of toy hacks and leftovers from other vehicles, and just a light smattering of stickers all the way around, with a couple of third-party dudes inside, or one third-party dude anyway, and you have a Crimson Stinger. I mean, it's that simple, right? It always is. And let's bring this guy back. Actually, let's put together our other one. So with the Stinger being the way it is, it's honestly a very simple thing. And the other recommendation I would make is that you paint the inside of the hull as well, just because you might think, oh, I've got the outside done, but then you forget to do the inside of the bars here. I would just do the whole darn thing, really, because the last thing that you want to have happen is when you put all this work in and you put it on display, and then, oh, you know what? From this angle, you can totally see the original color. And then you have to pull it apart again, fix any damage to the paint, etc., etc. And why do that to yourselves, right? So in this case, my inspiration for this current project, which I'm not going to do on this episode, is what I love about the Vamp, aside from it being my all-time favorite G.I. Joe vehicle, based on a real-life prototype from Lamborghini, by the way, called the Cheetah. If you want to look that up, it's actually it's pretty cool. If I could buy one, I would. And in this case, you can see I've taken Stinger, turret, and roof and door bits, and I've put them on a Vamp Mark 1. So the difference between the Stinger canvas, let's call it the canvas bits, the Stinger canvas bits and the Mark II canvas bits, is that the Stinger doors attach at the top, so they're almost like, not gull-wing doors, I guess, but they do open very similar to that, whereas the Vamp Mark II doors open up forward almost traditionally. So you can't mix Stinger and Vamp Mark II parts. But by the time we get this done here, I won't snap the hull back on. I try to do the more complex or more risky disassembly and reassembly as minimally as possible, especially once I start putting paint on. But the doors and stuff are fine. So once I do this here, you can see it already makes it a wholly different vehicle. You could actually leave it like this and just paint the missiles green if you wanted to, or some other color. Maybe paint the launcher green as well. But it's really up to you. But you can see already what it does for your custom, in that it already changes the shape and makes it look fantastic. This one is going to be Tiger Force. I'll tell you that right now. There's your spoiler. We're going to do it on a future channel, but it's not just going to be Tiger Force. It's going to be Tiger Force with a twist. Watch the episode upcoming to find out what that's like. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. But the reason why I wanted to do the vehicle spotlight on this is to highlight the fact that, one, the four-wheel drive Rattler Jeep is not the same shape as the Stinger or the Vamp, so you need to be cautious of that if you're mixing parts, if you find separate parts on eBay or wherever you buy your stuff from. And that there's really good interchangeability of parts for launchers and doors and all that kind of stuff, but it's not unlimited in that the way that they carry their back junk in the trunk, if you will, is a little bit different between the vehicles. So just plan it out first and keep that in mind. And if you do need to wait to get another part because your original plan doesn't work, then be patient. You don't want to try and fight through something or come up with an idea that may not work, and then you maybe drill some holes where you didn't want to, and then you got to repair all that stuff. So don't even bother. Save yourself the time and trouble. I've done a couple of custom modern Vamps and Stingers as well, including the retro line. I have not tried a vintage Stinger shell or hull on the opposite part on the retro line. So if I do that in the future, I'll certainly make mention of it as part of the video, but I haven't tried that yet, so I will not make a statement saying go ahead, they're completely interchangeable. The plastic is different. It's got a different feel to it. In fact, the retro line, the newer Stinger, is much lighter than the previous one. But yeah, the real big takeaway from this episode is test before you paint. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get caught halfway through a project when that happens. And for modern vehicles as well, I haven't done any vintage modern swap arounds. A lot of the modern vehicles are actually a different mold altogether. They look the same, but the tires have, more aggressive tread on them. Maybe the vehicle's slightly bigger overall. There's a few examples like that. One of the vehicles that's perfect for that example is the water moccasin / fang boat / all the other different names it gets. The vintage and the Pursuit of Cobra line and all that stuff, they are different sized vehicles. They look the same, but it's different. So again, that's another reason to test before you paint. And that's all there is to it. So why don't we cut it here? It's a nice short episode. It'll get you off to the races if you haven't done a custom Vamp yet. I highly recommend it because these things are just so much fun. And we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, I hope all of your projects are going fantastically well. If not, take a break, come back, watch some of these videos, laugh at my mistakes, and carry on with your projects. We'll see you on the next episode. Be safe and have fun.